you want to start your own company? You want to expand to a new branch versus do you want to acquire someone? Starting it up almost takes as much effort in a new location as you did originally. It takes a lot of energy to start something from scratch again, as opposed to the major drawback on the inorganic side when you're acquiring a company. You walk in, you've got revenue, you've got staff, but the culture is different.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today, we've got two guests in the studio with us, Lars and Tony. We'll find out more about who they are and what they're going to be talking about because we don't really even know in just a few moments. But before we do that, I do want to invite you to subscribe. We do a brand new episode every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and we have a video version as well as the audio version. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. If you're watching this online or someone has shared it with you, you can subscribe on YouTube or you can follow us on Facebook. All you have to do is search for Loc-Doc Security. Make sure you subscribe and so you don't miss a single episode. Thank you for joining us. You'll grab a cup of coffee and get ready for a fun conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jed?
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
It's incredible. So this is the first time. Well, nope, that's a lie. This is the second time we've done an all together in person podcast. Most of the time it's virtual.
Correct.
The first time was out in San Antonio several years ago.
Yeah,
It was somewhere.
MSC conference.
Yeah. So now you're here in Charlotte visiting, and we'll do introductions real quick. So over on, I guess, the far left side of the screen is Tony Hokanson
Yes.
from Assured Security.
Oh, you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, that'd be awesome if
Okay.
you wouldn't mind.
Tony Hokanson with Assured Security in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have a commercial security company, does locks, doors, frames, operators. Been around since 1964.
1964.
How old were you then when you guys started?
Negative 20, negative 25.
Gotcha.
Math.
Yeah.
And then just to your right is the one and only Lars Johnston.
Yeah, I like that intro. Lars Johnston from Canada. That's the country that's just north of you.
Yep.
It's like the hat. If you were the body, it's the hat. So we're the hat of Montana. That's what we call it. Calgary, Alberta. Calgary Lock and Safe. The pride of the West. The Great White North. That's us.
A lot of nicknames there. So I think the fun thing about what we're going to be talking about today is something that I guess all three of us have done at various stages, but I think it'll be an interesting conversation from different perspectives. But it is fun to have all three of us in the same place for periods of time. So we're kind of
Brief periods of time.
Brief,
it's
very
tolerable.
brief.
Yeah, it's good.
And then we have to disperse. So this microphone is about to fall apart, but I think I'll be fine. Appreciate you guys stopping in today and being here to do this. We do a little thing on the podcast called Rapid Fire. 5 randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values, and then we'll give you a score at the end.
Oh, gosh.
All right?
Wonderful.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Rapid fire. Oh, boy.
So we'll do that real quick. We'll just kind of bounce through a couple of questions and just kind of get your responses. We'll do all 5 of them for both of you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Tony, what's the story behind why you replaced your last phone?
I guess I needed a new one. There's no story, unfortunately. Just wanted to upgrade it.
Riveting podcast.
Yes. Typically get a new phone once every couple of years, and
it was time.
It was time.
Okay.
Upgraded to the iPhone
very practical.
12. Yes, great phone.
Very
3 years old now. It's almost time for a new one.
Such a practical guy. Lars?
Risk adverse. It was shiny and new, so I thought it was time. It's the 14, as we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah, it's only about a week old.
Practical, 3 years old, about a week old, shiny and new.
No reason whatsoever, just shiny and new.
Question number 2. This is going to be great.
Oh, boy.
Do you consider telling white lies to be okay?
Typically not.
Seems a bit too risky.
Yes, exactly. Like to be honest and integrous.
Lars?
Yeah, me too. Absolutely what Tony said. Absolutely not. I would never tell a white lie.
All right. Question number 3. What do you consider the most difficult food to eat?
You take this one first.
Most difficult food to eat. Well, I've shared this with you guys. Probably coffee. I am very impressed that white shirt, coffee, clean so far.
Yeah. Because you have a history of just completely missing the cup with your coffee.
You know, it's a skill that not a lot of people talk about. Mm-hmm. It's almost resume worthy, but you know, when you press the button and it streams out I do the double spout, right, through the espresso, and you got to get it's a small cup. I mean, it takes a little talent, as you know. I've perfected it recently, so.
How long did that take you?
On a winning streak.
A couple of years.
Yeah. Winning streak.
Oh yeah, I've got like 3 or 4 in a row now.
So your most difficult food to eat is getting espresso inside of the cup.
Yes,
All
and
right.
I know everyone listening seems like, yeah, he's right. That's not easy.
I'm going to go with lettuce wraps. Just very messy, very dirty. Stuff always falls out. Yeah.
Gives you a lot of anxiety.
Tasty. They sound great, but yes, no. Never goes
a
well.
bit risky.
So usually avoid them, even though they are good.
Seems risky.
Oh, boy. Question number 4. What types of things do you procrastinate on the most?
Oof, everything.
These are all random
Everything.
questions, by the
Yeah,
way.
wonderful. Specifically, anything that takes more than 5 minutes to do, I tend to just ignore it. So, lots of stuff.
Laundry out of the dryer. I'm good at washing it, good at drying it, but really enjoy putting a pile of clean clothes somewhere, and then instead of getting them on the hangers.
I'm good at that too.
Oh man, I've looked into specific services. Can I hire someone just to put clothes? You don't need to wash them. Just need you to put them on the hangers, hang them up.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. Should.
It's a task.
Doesn't. I don't know if there's an entrepreneur listening that can.
I think there's a thing called the cleaners, and they hang them.
But they also do the cleaning.
Yeah.
I don't need the
Oh,
cleaning.
you don't need the cleaning,
I just
just the
need somebody to put them on the hangers.
Professional hanging service.
Well, yeah, I got, you get the fancy hangers that have the velvet or something on them.
Oh,
Because
velvet
that's what I
hangers.
was told. Anyway, yeah. And then it makes the clothes stick when you're trying to put it on. It's a whole thing.
I can see why you would procrastinate on that. Tony, last question, number 5. Have you ever done something embarrassing around a former crush?
Maybe? I cannot remember. It's been a long time. Sorry, not interesting. Yeah.
No, never.
Hopefully you have some type of a story here.
Never. I've been smooth as ice every time.
Smooth as ice.
Smooth
Is this one of
as
those white lies?
ice. No, Tony, don't embarrass me.
Okay.
All right. Well, congratulations. You made it through rapid fire. Tony, you'll get a score of 713. Lars, just under that at 712. All right.
Yeah. That's closer than your golf score yesterday, though.
That's touche. I think Tony won a game for the first time in his life.
At Loc-Doc Security, we know that managing access to your facility can be challenging and time-consuming. From making sure new hires have access from day one to setting time restrictions for on-site vendors, Loc-Doc Security offers a wide range of solutions to help you manage any size facility. Take full control of your buildings, grant and revoke access quickly and easily, guaranteeing your facility's safety inside and out. Loc-Doc Security, your access management solution.
So, welcome back. We'll get into the conversation around the topic today, which is around acquisitions. And the reason I think that this is an interesting topic to start down or start to unpack from a practical sense is right now, I mean, you guys are well aware of it, there's a lot of kind of roll-ups happening. There's an interesting dynamic, especially in the world of the service industries, of smaller companies coming together through mergers or larger companies coming in and buying up groups of people to expand their geographical location or just to get a bigger presence and then have some consistency in the service. So I want to break this conversation down, if we can, into really three different things. Number one, if I am a individual looking to acquire another business, what are some things that I need to be intentional about and be prepared for, some things I need to be looking at? Number two, if I am a company that is interested in being acquired or looking to sell my business, what are things that I need to be preparing for to make my business look, feel, sound good as a potential acquisition partner? And then the third thing that I want to integrate into the conversation is if I am a customer of a particular service company, what is the pros and cons or the things that I should be mindful of if I'm working with somebody and they are acquiring or being acquired? How does that affect me from a customer standpoint? So to break that down, if I'm somebody that's trying to acquire, if I'm somebody that is trying to be acquired, or if I'm a customer of a company that is in the midst of that process, what kind of things should I be mindful of? Does that work for everybody today?
Sounds great.
It's your show, bud. Yep.
I think this is a really practical thing that we're all kind of in the midst of right now. I know Tony has acquired a couple of different businesses through his area. Lars, you have as well. We have as well. So, so we've got some similarities in that side of things, but we also all did them very different and unique. So I don't think that there's one clean process across the board, but I think we can share some experiences around that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no answer to the question, but there's. Yeah, I can tell you what not to do a few times.
Yeah. That's a big factor. Okay, so let's jump into the part one, which is if I am looking to acquire a company, what are some things that I need to be looking for as I navigate down that path?
I would start with finding a company, or make sure you know why you're acquiring them. Make sure they're going to be a good strategic fit. Are you doing it to increase your revenue? Are you doing it to broaden your geographic reach? Are you doing it to get skill sets? We've acquired 3 companies, and all 3 were for different reasons. So know why you're doing it first.
So have a why, an intentionality behind it. Is it for a particular purpose, or is it just, I don't know, I feel like we just need to acquire more people? Being intentional about having duplicity.
Yep.
Or not having duplicity, I guess, in certain areas and roles.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, all I'd add to that is be sure that you want the growth. Because I think we might have talked about this last time we were chatting, but it was, growth seems like a good idea, always. But it's not always. So you just have to be prepared. More is more everything.
Yeah. So let's expand on that a little bit more. When you say more is more everything, well, like what are some things that you learned through acquisitions and growth that you have had to apply? Because I don't want to say like things that you would want to do different, because I mean that's probably way too easy. But what are the things that you've learned from it that have made you a better business?
I'm trying to think of the quote, but I believe it's "Mo money, mo problems." There was a great philosopher. It might have been Socrates. There's kind of 2 ways. If you're looking at an organic growth, I think we just talked about this recently. Organic or inorganic. Do you want to start your own company? You want to expand to a new branch versus do you want to acquire someone and move that direction? The things that we've experienced, starting it up almost takes as much effort in a new location as you did originally. And I was just talking about this recently that, it takes a lot of energy to start something from scratch again. Right? Where sadly I'll get older every day. So it's a different mentality, as opposed to the major drawback on the inorganic side. When you're acquiring a company, you walk in, you've got revenue, you've got staff, but the culture is different. Whereas, you're starting with culture when you're starting it up, and you're trying to shift culture on the organic side or the inorganic side. So I prefer acquisition over trying to start our own, which was probably a different mindset than 10 years ago. But I just find it's easier to start with something and build on that as opposed to starting with zero and trying to grow from there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really good businesses out there that are in this state of they've kind of, I guess, capped out their capacity and they're looking to say, hey, how can we continue to expand what we've already built upon? And they're looking to connect up with another organization so that they can continue to see that thing go forward. I had a conversation with somebody a few years ago, and they were really talking about how they were more excited about seeing something that they had built be taken by somebody else and grown into something larger than what they ever had the opportunity to or possibility to. And so that's a big component of it as well. So the acquisition part of that from a growth standpoint, like you're learning through the challenges that come with more people, more customers, more opportunities, but it also gives you a wider breadth of things that you can accomplish as well. So there's that as a positive. Tony, what have you kind of through your acquisitions been able to add in way of your business?
One thing that we noticed a lot would look at going forward is just how do you structure your organization when you take on that acquisition. So you're adding anywhere from 2 to additional 20 people depending on the size of the acquisition, and obviously in different industries much larger, but how does that change your structure? So the first acquisition we did, we added about 6 employees, and that really had to change how we operate and how we set up our organization. And like Lars said, it's easy way to grow fast, but growing fast can change how you structure things and just how you do things in general. So you have to build in different ways of leadership and just how that rolls out.
What was one of the things that shocked you the most about your first or second acquisition from something that you weren't expecting?
I would say the amount of time that goes into it from you personally. As the owner of the company, you want to be there, seeing people. And just in general, there's just a lot of extra things you don't realize. Thankfully, the first business we bought was operating very well on its own, and we didn't have to do probably as much as a lot of other people, but there's still just a lot of little things that come up that you wouldn't think about. One other thing that we came into issues with is branding. I know we've talked about this at length, and it's something that, as we go forward, if we were looking at more acquisitions, it's something that I'd be thinking about ahead of time. What do we want to do with the brand? What's that going to look like? Which, again, in our industry is very tricky because you're acquiring businesses that have been around since 1900, and they're well-established brands. They have long-standing customer relationships, which is a lot of the reason we would buy a business. And you don't want to ruin that, but at the same time, you don't want to cause brand confusion. And I think that that's something that you can never do exactly right, but it's something to think through for sure ahead of time.
What about you, Lars?
I find the communication piece to be a challenge. There's so many details, as Tony said, and I'm not going to claim that I pay attention to details, but there, little things like one of the like major things we talk about, just a bank account, right? You have, if you're buying a business that's substantial, you have 300 or 400 active customers. They do direct deposits. Like, how do you turn that off and turn it on over here? All these kind of little details that you just, how are we going to handle that, right? Surely somebody's going to do that, right? Little things like that are a challenge. And then when you're, I think everything in life comes down to how is this going to impact me? So whether you're on the buying side or the selling side, everyone's thinking about it, but no one's really saying it. Is, well, what does this mean? Oh, they're bringing this person in, so am I losing my job? Am I, what's going to happen? Yeah. Right. And all these questions that I've got in my mind, I know how it's going to go. But then trying to say that out loud and get it organized, and then I feel like regardless of what I'm saying, it only answers a fraction of the questions, and people take implications off that, and Yeah. So that's, I talked to you about it, and, you said over communicate, which is a challenge in itself.
Sure. No, I think that's probably a very fair assessment. Is the plan that you have to execute from an acquisition standpoint in merging two companies together is something that you're, one, can internalize a lot, and then two, you are constantly morphing and adapting it, because it's like, all right, this is the way I think it's going to go, and then, hit this little issue here, so now I've got to divert, and keeping everybody together through that, because there is a lot of kind of chaos that's happening and a lot of unknowns where people are operating in a sense of, I don't know what's getting ready to happen. How do I prepare for it? And so I think that's one big thing that we learned through our process was setting a plan up early, and then just reviewing that plan consistently and saying, okay, this is what we said, this is what we're doing, this is what's changed, and kind of keep moving forward. The big thing that I did not expect going into the largest acquisition that we did was the amount of time that it was going to take to blend the two companies together, where it became an us mentality or an us philosophy versus a we do it this way, y'all do it that way, and the amount of time it turned into a we do it this way.
And your mindset is this: you're thinking like days, weeks, right? Like
day two,
yeah. And it's realistically is months, if not years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the bigger the acquisition, the bigger the change, and that's where you notice. Like every acquisition we've ever done, and that's five-ish, I would say.
Who was the ish?
Well, it's five
Oh,
or so. How's that, Tony? That's Canadian for I'm not sure, I'm estimating. The the five or so we've, done. Now I don't know what I'm talking about, Tony, but
The five that you've done.
yes, the five that we've done, I'm not. Well, obviously they've all been a little bit different, but the I don't know where I'm going now, Tony. I don't know.
Tony just asks questions all the time.
I don't know what your question was, but one thing I would add for anyone that's looking to acquire a business is to make sure to reach out to industry peers that you might know. I know the first time we did an acquisition, there was a couple people that I reached out to and talked to a lot that had bought acquisitions or done acquisitions in the past and were very helpful.
Yeah.
And are very willing to share information, help with some of the challenges they'd been through, help with how to value the business, what to look for. I know I spoke with Lars quite a bit too on that, and just I think people are very willing to help, especially in our industry where what we do in Minnesota does not impact him in Canada. So if you are looking to acquire a business, look to somebody that has done it before, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions because people are surprisingly willing to answer.
Yeah. So we were talking about kind of blending the businesses together, and you said the different sizes of the businesses have different challenges, and so you've learned through different stages of that before you got distracted.
Before I turned into ish, and I have no idea what I was going to say. I'm sure it'll come back to me in a few minutes. So, but Tony mentioned, other people are very helpful, just like he was there, asking me to define the ish. Yeah.
According to a recent study, nearly 50% of burglaries and unauthorized entries happen through propped or unlocked doors. We want to help our community improve this statistic.
At Loc-Doc Security, our customers want locked and latched doors and openings to prevent theft, property damage, or even physical attacks. We are urging everyone not to wait for something to happen. You can be proactive today.
So you're looking to acquire somebody. So those are some elements to be mindful of as you're navigating and understanding the why. Like what are we doing this for? There's a geographical area that we want to go to. There's a certain skill set that we're trying to bring on. And we know some folks that have acquired different types of businesses as a bolt-on. So we offer these two services, and we want to have this complementary third service. Instead of going out and building that organically, let's just kind of acquire and bolt on. So you have all those. And then I guess the other thing from a buyer standpoint, what are you looking at outside of understanding the brand, understanding location, the why, and all those things? What are some other things that you're looking at for that business to say, this is, so kind of navigating into that second part of the questions, which are, what do I need to be preparing myself for if I'm looking to be acquired? What are the things that are standing out to you that this is going to be a good acquisition versus a bad acquisition?
One of the big things I look for is the people in the business. Are they going to be valuable people in our industry and many industries nowadays? Good people are hard to come by. So I look at who are their employees. In some cases, you don't get to know the employees ahead of time. In some cases, you get to meet them, which is really nice. But if nothing else, asking the owner, learning about who they have, what they do, what they're looking for, how long are they going to continue working. Another big thing to me is existing customer base. Is it a repeat customer base? Are there big customers that we want to work with?
Yeah.
Are they a bunch of smaller one-time customers that's not going to be as repeatable? How consistent is that customer base? Another piece too is there any real estate involved in the acquisition? Trying to see, are we simply buying the customers? Are we simply buying the customers and getting to work with good employees? Or are we also potentially getting a geographic retail location that would help expand our reach?
What from a understanding the employee standpoint? So, say we're looking to acquire a business that's got 5 employees. Have you, from your experiences, has that typically been an open dialogue inside the business that you've been able to go in there and meet with folks, or how has that happened from your perspective?
In the acquisitions we've done, we have not been able to meet the employees. So a lot of it was just conversations with the current owner, trying to just get an understanding of the employees, see what he says about them, see what their tendencies are, and try to get a good feel for, will these employees help our business, and can we help these employees, and are they going to like working with us?
Yeah. Is that a typical question that you would ask when you're dealing with a current owner and talking through acquisition? Do your employees know that you're looking to sell?
Yeah, I mean, that usually comes up pretty early when you're having that conversation with them. But it's very, I don't know how much you want to get into the weeds on this, but it's usually a pretty private thing that is not actively being sold. One of the lessons I've learned is the ones that are being actively sold are the ones with less value, generally speaking. But yeah, it's part of the conversation you have early on. But you're generally not approaching the staff and the employees until it's, if you're financing it, whatever, it's assigned and sealed.
Yeah.
It's based on, all the conditions are waived. That's when you actually move in there. But beforehand, you want to know I thought of what I was going to say. You want to know who's going to stay. Yeah. And what I was going to say before Tony so rudely interrupted me was on the different acquisitions that we had made, we have never laid off anyone. So we have kept everyone on. That's part of it, because usually that's a big part of the sale, because the existing owners want to take care of their people. Yeah. And when we're expecting days and hours, for them to become us and we, I find that magic number is about 6 months. At about the 6 month part, people know if they fit and they want to be part or they don't. And most people have either, turned in their notice or quit within that period. Sure. Which, just seems to work out best for everyone.
When you're going through that process, you typically, say if it's a store location, they have a retail or some type of storefront, do you typically stop by and just kind of shop the place as if you were a customer, just to kind of see what the environment is like, or you just completely hands off until those final stages?
I usually, the most recent one, we're actually in the acquisition phase right now. We closed one about a week ago. We're in the due diligence stage with another one. as we speak. But yeah, first started out just to kind of get a feel. I kind of made a joke to my partners, like, we should probably go have a look and make sure this place exists.
Yeah.
Are we actually buying something? But we go and we have a look. We don't mention who we are.
Sure.
Because just out of privacy and respect to the sellers.
Yeah.
And then we generally meet with them after work and, tell us about who everyone is, and that's part of the process.
Yep.
We have never really seen it during normal day-to-day, but we've always met with the owners on site and toured the building and get to know the business. So I haven't seen it in action per se, but would always go in there and see the building at least.
Yeah, we've a couple little things we also do is we usually hire the company as a subcontractor to do some work for us somewhere. So we kind of get an idea of how they work, who they are. You get a pretty good feeling of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. No, I think that's valuable advice. I know I heard a kind of a rough story one time of an acquisition, and there was no knowledge of it at all until day one when the new company came in to take over, and the previous owner was like, "Oh, by the way, I sold the business. Here's the new guy. See ya." And the company was just kind of in shock because there was not any type of notice. And then the new owner was at a major disadvantage because he's just walking in going, are you serious? Like, everybody just found out right now. And so going through that process, but also just understanding who you are actually dealing with through the process. I know our latest acquisition that we did was very open, very transparent. And so we got a chance to walk through the store, meet everybody, and just kind of interact with people through the process and understand and even have a conversation with them and say, hey, this is what we're planning to do, and this is what it means for you, and this is how we're going to try to transition, and try to make sure that there was any questions of the unease were answered ahead of time.
Yeah, and I mean, generally speaking, people get it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have this day and age, there's a whole whack of small business that has 70-year-olds that are, 65, 70 years old, even 60 to 70, looking to either slow down that exit strategy, that plan in place. I mean, this is not a surprise to people that, people in that stage of life are looking to move on and just, do something else. So the staff, understand that is coming, whether they want to accept it or look forward to it. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, it usually doesn't catch people by surprise.
You bring up a really good point about the owner too. That's a really important thing to figure out is what are their intentions after you acquire them? Do they want to stay and work part-time? Do they want to stay and work full-time? Are they looking to be done day one? That's a very important thing to look into. And the acquisitions we've done, it's been different every time. But making sure that piece is worked out is valuable.
And I'm not sure how much you want to dive into how to actually value a business, because I know you're a tangible kind of guy, but that fits directly into valuing the business. If an owner wants to stick around, we generally hire them on as consultants, right, and keep them on for a month, 2 months, and that's right in the a restrictive covenant, a non-compete, right, and you're going to stay on as a consultant for 3 months. A lot of people say a year, and what you'll find is after a couple months, you're ready we want to do it my way, our way, the new company's way. And the longer that the previous, captain is in play, it continues along that path. So there is a lot of value that they bring, but in an industry such as ours, I mean, there's only so many ways you can cut a key, right? Like after a couple months, we figured out who's who in the zoo, and they can carry on their path. And yeah.
No, that is actually a good piece of advice, is determining what that timeline is if they are going to stay around it. Because I think Tony has at least one of his acquisitions. The owners are still actively involved, or the previous owners were still actively involved in the business, and that was how they were wanting to navigate. They still wanted to be involved in moving forward, and in the work capacity, they just didn't want the actual business side of.
Yeah, and in that particular acquisition, that owner had a lot of knowledge we wanted to work with him on and learn from, and kind of helped us expand our skill set into different areas.
Sure.
So he's been very valuable in that, and again, that was part of the acquisition and part of the reason we wanted to do it. So
Yeah. So understanding what that looks like, defining that as you move forward as well.
Yep.
From a valuing the business standpoint, you're looking at a lot of factors. And so the favorite phrase that we like to use is it depends. Well, hey, we wanted to jump in real quick and take a break. We were just talking about evaluations. We're talking about acquisitions. We're talking about all kinds of fun things as it relates to growing your business through the acquisition program. Now, we're going to take a break on this, and we're going to split this conversation into two parts. So I want you to join us next week because we're going to dive in on a really tactical way to evaluate a business. What is it actually worth? How much is your business worth? How much should I pay for a business? That's going to be the really focus of the conversation for next week. Thank you to Tony and Lars for joining us today. So I want you to just hit a pause. I think you've gotten a lot of great information right here, and join us next week. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe because you really want to know when this next episode comes out on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Thank you for joining us today for the Coffee Break Podcast.